Hello and welcome to Hawkeye Nation. This is HawkCast, your Iowa football, basketball, and recruiting podcast brought to you by Hawkeye Beacon and Rivals.com. I am your lead analyst and host, Eliot Clough, at Eliot Clough on X, joined as always by Mr. Ross Binder, managing editor for us at Hawkeye Beacon. Before we get started, make sure you drop a like, drop a comment on YouTube, subscribe wherever you're listening so you don't miss an episode, and so you can stay tuned with us as we cover the transfer portal or the transfer portals, I should say, between men's basketball, women's basketball, and football. Ross and I will not have any singular iota of a life over. And
There's even the wrestling transfer portal is also open right now. So like there's activity at every level right now.
right, and you've got that handled way more or following it way more than I do, so I didn't even think about it. But yeah, lots happening. I mean, I went to Colorado and I still had to work. Just that kind of situation, and then got food poisoning again. So,
Ugh.
the world just kind of feels against us at this moment in time. But we'll be all right. We'll be all right. But to start off talking a little bit more about the portal, player that we talked about a little bit last week as a name to watch, and that we've discussed for a few weeks on the premium board is Brendan Hausen out of Kansas State. That was a contingency plan that we discussed when he was in the portal. Definitely a shooter, probably if not the best shooter, one of the better shooters in the portal, at least top five. At 38.8% from three last season as a volume 3-point shooter, 10.9 points. So definitely a need that Iowa got addressed here with Hausen. I presume that he's your immediate starter at the two as well.
Yeah, I think he's a really solid addition. I mean, I like the fact that he played at K-State last year, so he's got that high major experience. Did well at K-State, like you said, averaged about 11 points, shot almost 40% from three. Volume guy, like you said, just launched a lot of threes and made a lot of threes. So yeah, I think that's the guy you can slot in the backcourt, probably the starting two. Should play a lot of minutes, should get a lot of shots up. What's the one thing? We heard from McCollum, in his opening presser and in a lot of his kind of media hits since then is he needs shooters. He needs shooters. Didn't have enough at Drake last year. Obviously, they did pretty well anyway. He made do. Just definitely wants to have more shooters though at the Big Ten level. You're just not going to succeed without shooters at that level. We saw with Iowa last year. They were down to basically Dix and Peyton and Price. And if one of those guys wasn't hitting on a given night, which they weren't on some several nights, unfortunately, it was rough. It was rough going. It was some tough sledding to score points, tough sledding to get the offense kind of clicking and flowing. So yeah, I think I really like what Hausen can do. I think this, even if he wasn't necessarily the number one choice, I think he's a really, really solid pickup and a really good addition next to Sturts and the other Drake guys in the backcourt.
I think somebody related him or pointed to Mitch Muscari as the comp for this last season at Drake. And I think that's typically what you're looking at or I guess what you would consider that role to be for him at Iowa is that complementary shooter that can space the floor and open things up for Bennett Sturts. Allows them to run those high pick and rolls and for Bennett either to get to the basket or get a foot in the lane, find a shooter, find a cutter, what have you. So it really helps space things out. And we've talked about this before. I don't know. I don't know that Hausen's a good defender. I'd need to watch more extensive film, but the size is an automatic bonus that he's 6'4", right? So you're going to have
Yep.
a bunch of guys that are 6'4" and above on the floor. And of course, you hope to actually get a big here sooner rather than later, other than Trevin Jirak from West Des Moines Valley, who will be a freshman. But yeah, it's just an all-around positive. You mentioned Kansas State. He also played 2 years at Villanova in the Big East. Was recruited by Jay Wright before he decided to retire. So some really positive things with Brendan. I think that's just a great ad, and I know he and Bennett Sturts are friends. So that's a positive right off the bat too.
Yeah, I mean, the sooner those two guys can, develop their chemistry and work together, then, that's going to be just a big, big positive for Iowa's guards.
Several visitors over the weekend as well. We mentioned Trevin Jirak, who committed over the weekend. 6'11" big out of West Des Moines Valley. Probably a three-ish star type of prospect. Ended up at UNI, but was probably going to get more high major offers, high major at least interest. Had he had remained uncommitted to the point that he did actually commit and then now has flipped to Iowa, but a really skilled big, a little slow. I think that's something that needs to be addressed. But he shot same percentage as Hausen did. Granted, it's high school 4A basketball. 38% from three this year. Had the most assists on that West Des Moines Valley team with Zay Robinson and Jaden McGregory on it. Um, and I mean, this is a solid pickup, and I think it's a lot better than what some people have said. Oh, you got another Missouri Valley guy. Well, it's diff. He played on the EYCL against guys that like Tommy Onaman, who Iowa was recruiting, and then ended up at Notre Dame. Played against some really good competition on the EYCL. So I think this is a great ad. He's a really good passer for his size. Was
Yep.
6'4" like 2 years ago, and now he's 6'11" with shoes on. So I think he's more of your finesse type big, whereas you've got your Cam Maniau, who's do the dirty work kind of guy. But Uric adds an added dimension that is just really nice to have in the front court. It's size, it's spacing, it's a skill set that McCollum has used before and that he likes to have on his teams.
Absolutely. I think definitely, we're going to talk about it more in a minute, but Iowa is still in the market for more bigs for sure. Definitely need some more guys that can be a little more physical in the post, can bang around. And obviously, like, it's Uric, is that right?
That's what I've been told.
Uric.
I
Okay.
don't think it's Gyrick or
Right, right. Let's
I
go
think
with Uric.
it's Jirak for those who
Right.
are
So
also
let's
speculating.
right. So we're gonna go with Uric. Um, yeah, I mean, a really skilled big, like you said, but also going to be a true freshman. Like, I don't know that he's a guy that you're going to want to see play big minutes next year. He's going to need some time to get acclimated, get used to, the intensity of Big Ten play, the physicality. He's going to need time to add some weight, get some strength training in, and all that. So he's a great pickup, I think, for down the road. A year or two. Really excited to see like what he can do paired with like Cooper Koch. That's a couple of really skilled bigs right there. Some really good shooting, passing. Excited about the playmaking possibilities there. Probably a guy that you're not gonna expect a ton from next winter, though, I think, which is fine. Iowa, I think, needs to get guys that are going to be more than just one of your rentals for sure, and that's him. He's a guy that can work with McCollum for a few years, can get developed and improved, and there's just a lot to like with that skill set. I always like bigs that kind of have that growth spurt and kind of start out maybe playing more of a guard position in their careers because then they retain a lot of those skills as they get bigger often. So that's just a nice bonus to have. So yeah, I think I'm really excited to see what he develops into at Iowa over the next couple of years.
He did tell me that he hopes to play in year one. I would
Right.
imagine that's going to be in a limited role, reserve role, if that does happen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see some situations where he's playing, but the idea of him playing a regular role next year is like, boy, I don't know. Something might have gone sideways if that's the case. It feels like right now. But we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. The other thing we should maybe point out is that, he is an absolute diehard Hawkeye fan. He talked about this with you in your great post after he committed or flipped from UNI to Iowa. And, this was essentially his dream since he was a really little dude. He wanted to play for Iowa, wanted to wear, the black and gold. So very, very cool that he gets to do that. And those guys are always great to get in recruiting because their buy-in is just going to be that much stronger. Everybody, wants to be there and is excited to play, obviously, but those guys that have been, just dreaming of being a Hawkeye since, they were 3 or 4 years old and from the first time they could dribble a basketball, like those are the guys that are definitely gonna give you all that extra effort and just really pour in everything they have.
Yep, yep, and I think McCollum has really established that he likes Jirak's game, obviously, to go after him as a high major player and expect him to be a contributor. Jirak is a unique big that I don't know that comes through the state of Iowa on a very frequent basis. It's pretty consistently. If you're that big, you're just getting the ball in the paint and told to score. So
He,
he's done quite a
he
bit more than that.
he reminds me a little bit of like Jared Uthoff, but not quite the same level of athlete that Uthoff was. I mean, Uthoff was a phenomenal athlete, just really great offensively and defensively. I don't think Jirak is there at this point. We'll see how much he can improve on that, and especially his kind of quickness at the college level.
Yes, we shall see. So he was one of the visitors over the weekend, along with several others that made the trip. And Nyk Lewis, who was another 2025 recruit that Iowa is trying to land after he decommitted from Xavier, top 60 recruit in the country. We may have talked about him a little bit last week, but he's a guy that I saw on the EYBL circuit last summer. And he is very, very legit. Four-star point guard, top number 10 point guard in the class, number 57 in the nation prospect. He visited over the weekend, actually was coached by Ben McCollum in the Team USA U8 team camp last year. Lewis didn't make the team, but he was coached by McCollum on the lead up to the selections, and McCollum has clearly had that track record of developing point guards, so that's definitely something that's in their favor. You look at Alvaro Folgueiras. I hope I'm pronouncing that one right too. But originally from Spain, started his career at Robert Morris and was a Horizon League Player of the Year this season for them. Went to the NCAA tournament. Another more skilled guy, pretty slight of frame, not really a center, more so probably a power forward. More finesse kind of guy that can step out, shoot it, soft touch, can distribute the ball too. And then you look at
Really,
go
really
ahead.
great, skilled, big, definitely like a stretch four type guy. Just, some really good shooting, good distributing, passing. Like, we say like Iowa needs some guys that can bang, and they still do. But you like what those guys, those skilled bigs could do, especially with the sort of offense that McCollum wants to run, and then based on what he did at Drake and Northwest Missouri State, someone like Fulgueras really seems like he could be an exciting addition to Iowa's front court, 100%. If he's not entirely what Iowa needs in terms of physicality, he was a really good rebounder, though, one of the best rebounders in the country at the mid-major level at Robert Morris. So, TBD how if he comes to Iowa, how that would translate to the behemoths in the Big Ten and everything. But I think there's definitely there's a better rebounder there than you'd think at first glance, because he does look like, he's kind of that very tall, skinny, lanky beanpole type big. But the numbers are legit from a rebounding standpoint, and that would be a big plus for Iowa too.
I think it's 14.9 points and 9.1 rebounds from this last season. So, yeah, that would be definitely a nice add. And again, a guy that can space the floor, step out, shoot it. But you just, in my opinion, you still need, 6'10" and above. You got to get one of those guys.
Yep.
The way it looks is Duke Brennan he will be visiting this weekend, Friday and Saturday. 6'10" big from Grand Canyon. Similar skill set to Cam Maniau, that came over from Drake and is 6'8". If you can have both of those guys, awesome. I think you'd prefer to have at least one big that's at least 6'10" that can protect the rim. I don't think they'll get both Duke and Alvaro. That'll be a tough situation for them to shell out the cash for that, to be frank. Both will
Yep.
be a little bit more expensive. Duke Brennan has begun to get attention from Kansas, so Blue Bloods getting involved here. Alvaro, they're both going to visit Villanova, so gonna be tough to land those guys, but they're going to need one sooner rather than later, right?
Absolutely. You're talking about Brennan, and you'd like to have that 6'10" guy instead of the 6'8" guy. And like it's kind of what Iowa saw last year, especially when Freeman went down, and Iowa just had to play Lodgy as much as they did, down low. And he's just The size just wasn't quite there against a lot of the other Big Ten bigs, and Evan Bronze did all right some games, but yeah, you need at least one of those big guys, I think, that can help uh, bring that. Just can't teach size, right? You need one of those guys down there in the paint.
Right. And if you end up getting, a guy that can space the floor, like an Austin Rapp type from Portland, that can space the floor and is like 6'10", 6'11", and then you can put Maniau at the four, like that would be ideal. Um,
Hmm.
if you're gonna start Maniau, but it's a tough situation because you need more shooting, even though you got Hausen, you still need more shooting. And you need size because your tallest player is going to be 6'11", but he's Trevin Jirak and he's a freshman. And then after that, it's Cam Maniau, who was 6'8", played center and was an undersized center in the NBC last year. So it's just a tough situation that you've got to figure out. You got to get guys to buy in. You got to get guys to complement each other's skill sets. And there's just things are moving now. You finally get a non-Drake, you finally get a
Yeah.
non-BC guy, a
Yep.
non-former Iowa guy like Cooper Koch to commit or to choose Iowa, but there's still a lot more work to be done. There's still plenty of money on the table that Iowa has to spend. So we'll obviously see how that shakes out. And if you want to follow along with all this, you can do that with us on our premium board. We're updating you as much as we know when we know. So that's at iowa.rivals.com or Hawkeye Beacon, iowa.rivals.com/subscribe to join us. While we're on it, one more name we got to discuss. Tyler Toolson from Utah Valley started his career at BYU. He visited on Monday and Tuesday this week. Now he's headed down elsewhere to visit other programs that weren't listed publicly. That's one of those updates that we have for folks that he will be checking out a few more programs before he makes his decision. Sort of 6'4" wing, kind of explosive, 35-ish% from three. More of a lob threat. I another guy that's 6'4", 6'5". I think we're gonna be seeing a lot of those type of frames like we did last year with Drake. So like I said, a little bit more athletic than a guy like Hausen, not quite the shooter. Um, and yeah, I think they're sitting all right with him. Dad is a former Utah Jazz basketball player, pro, and so the connections are there to the league. And he spent a lot of his life in on the West Coast and in Utah. If I had to guess, he stays out there, but that's a name to watch too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, getting him on a visit to Iowa is a win in terms of Iowa's ability to land him for sure. And we'll see how that visit went and how his upcoming visits go. He would be another guy that, just would add some more quality depth to that backcourt and to that, maybe wing rotation too. Iowa, they've got the Drake crew that they added, and now Hausen, but they still need a few more guys that they can use and then that backcourt and at the like the three or the small forward position maybe. And yeah, if he decides to come, he would be a solid addition. It does seem like it'll be hard to get him, out of kind of the Mountain Time Zone or the West Coast Pacific Time Zone, but we shall see. It's the portal. Anything can happen, right?
Yeah, you are preaching to the choir right there, Rod. Speaking of which, expecting or was told that there should be another visitor this week. We'll see if that materializes. And then there are a couple more commits in the background that folks are going to find out about as things go along here. Again, you can find out who those are, what we're hearing, what we're seeing at iowa.rivals.com/subscribe. So check out that with us today and be privy to all that information. So while we're talking hoops, before we get to the football portal, which opens today as you're listening to this, we're recording here on Tuesday, but posting on Wednesday. And yeah, let's get to women's basketball before we do that. Lucy Olson taken 23rd overall by the Washington Mystics. First WNBA draft pick of the Jan Jensen era. I think that's pretty damn cool. You got to be happy for
It
Lucy,
is.
right?
Absolutely. It's a great kind of just a great capper to the season she had. She comes to Iowa from Villanova, had a really solid career at Villanova, and then had a really good, 1 year at Iowa. Ended up being all Big Ten first team. led Iowa to a pretty good record. What was it, about 22 and 10, something like that.
Take your word for it.
Made
I don't
Yeah, I don't
know.
know. The numbers get all jumbled together after this portal nonsense. Made the second round of the NCAA tournament. Yeah, they had that little blip in the middle of the year that kind of coincided with some of Lucy's worst games as a Hawkeye too. She was really struggling to shoot the ball for a few games, and the whole team kind of struggled as well. She turned it around after that, and Iowa went on a 6-game winning streak. She was phenomenal in that winning streak and kind of kept it up more or less through the end of the season at a pretty similar clip to that, and was just really, really good. So yeah, really happy for her. Second year in a row with Iowa getting some WNBA draft picks. Obviously, last year, they had the number one overall, that Caitlin Clark lady, probably heard of her. Um, and they had a second round pick too, Kate Martin, a little bit surprisingly taken by the Aces. And that's kind of always the question. The WNBA rosters are just so cutthroat. There just aren't that many roster spots. There's a new expansion team now, the Golden State Valkyries. So now there are 156 spots in the league, up from 144 a year ago. But still, like that's 156 spots for everybody. And you know how many, girls are coming out of college trying to get those spots, girls from overseas competing for those spots. The number two pick overall this year was a big from France who looks super skilled, super talented. So just really, really difficult. But again, we saw Kate Martin, drafted in the second round last year, made the roster with the Aces and played a decent role for them all year. And then she ended up going to the Valkyries, as a matter of fact, in the expansion draft. So we will see what she can do on that brand new team this season. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a path for Olsen to make the Mystics and stick around. Mystics looks like a pretty good situation for her. That was a team didn't have a lot of talent last year. They wound up with the third, fourth, and sixth picks in the first round this year. They obviously made some trades and whatnot. Didn't have a lot at the guard position. Drafted, a few guards this year. So there's some competition there, but it's not insurmountable, I don't think. So yeah, hopefully Lucy can carve out a role for herself and stick with the Mystics. And yeah, I could have another player in the WNBA, which is a great feather, in the program's cap, and just a really great start, for Jan Jensen to, already get that first draft pick, just like you said, just 1 year in, just a really tremendous accomplishment.
I think one point that you made there that's really important regarding Lucy making a roster spot and getting carving out a role in the WNBA is that she went to a bad team. Like partial, like you kind of have to be if you're an
Yep.
Iowa fan, you kind of have to be excited about that, right? Because it's not Caitlin Clark who is
Right.
day one probably your best player, whereas Lucy is a really good player, but it takes a lot to find a roster spot in the WNBA. It's hard. It's a small league. There's only so
Yep.
many spots. So if you're Lucy and you're an Iowa fan, you got to be thinking she's got a real shot to earn a spot as opposed to, going somewhere like the Las Vegas Aces or another really good program, the
Like the
organization.
Liberty.
Liberty, right,
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
You don't want, it's tough to go to some, team that already or the Lynx, the team that has like an already stacked roster where they're just, you're going to be like, one of like four women competing for like one spot maybe. Like that's a tough, mountain to climb. Probably a little bit easier at the Mystics. Like I said, they just didn't have a lot of talent. They were, trying to improve quickly through this draft. So, she's going to try and carve out that role probably, as a bench player, at least to start, bring some energy off the bench, some shooting, little defense, maybe something like that. I would not obviously see her as a day one starter. She obviously went in the second round in the draft. So, but definite potential there. So yeah, just gonna see what happens.
We will. And now we will talk about the football portal. And as y'all saw on Twitter, apparently I'm a dumbass because I said, well, holy shit, when Brendan Sullivan entered the portal. And like to clarify, not surprised, but it was just like another thing while I was in Colorado over the weekend. So it was just like, okay, another thing. Holy crap. And I got flamed on Twitter for that. I was like, oh gosh, I expected
Yeah.
it to. Ross, I don't know about you. I thought he'd probably go through spring ball as Iowa's number one quarterback and get all those reps and uh, stay with the program and learn from Tim Lester and compete. And that was the surprise, I guess. I thought that he'd take all those one reps and try to beat out Gronowski, but it didn't shake out like that. He's in the portal and he could enter because he's a grad transfer, right? Like you're near a grad
Yep.
transfer, you can enter at any time. So
Yep.
it's a little different than a few of the other guys, but um, yeah, I was surprised for that reason.
I would agree. Yeah, I think the only surprise I had was really around the timing. Like you said, it was always difficult. You hoped just from a depth standpoint, like, boy, it would be great if Iowa could keep Gronowski and Sullivan both, to have just, that really solid depth at quarterback next fall. But that also just seemed like, in all likelihood, a very unlikely scenario. Sullivan, and do not begrudge him one iota. Like he's got 1 year left of college football, wants to go play somewhere. Totally understand that, wants a better opportunity of playing time. 100% get that. So yeah, you kind of figured that, especially, we haven't seen Gronowski go live or anything yet, but just everything around him, like he had that great appearance with the media a couple of weeks ago. Everything the coaches have said, like it just seems like he's settling in really well. And, it would just be a complete shock if he obviously didn't. I mean, he's going to win the QB1 job now, but even before Sullivan left, it really seemed like, it was going to be him in that role and everything. So you thought Sullivan, I thought Sullivan would probably enter the portal. I did think it would be a little bit later in the spring, but I can also see from his perspective where it's like, hey, if I'm going to do this, why not do this now and give myself a leg up maybe on, if some other quarterbacks enter the portal in the next few weeks, which obviously they will, there will be no shortage. So give him another, a little advance opportunity to, find his next landing spot and, find that better fit for him and everything. So yeah, the timing I think is just, entering the portal halfway through spring practice like this, awkward for sure, I think, and a little surprising, I think for both of us, but the ultimate decision and outcome, like, yeah, that part's not surprising.
I think if he were to have earned the opportunity to compete for the starting job, it would have been in the bowl game, and Iowa would have run away with that game rather than losing it in the second half. That would have been his
Yeah.
opportunity. And had he stayed healthy and the US UCLA game hadn't happened the way it did, those would have been his opportunities to compete. I think either way, Iowa was gonna go get a quarterback in the portal, whether it was Gronowski or somebody else. I'm curious now as to what his opportunities are going to look like because if you're not QB1 at Northwestern and you're not QB1 at Iowa, where are you going to go? It's gonna inevitably have to be somewhere like if it's a Power Five program or a Power Four program, it's either gonna have to be a low tier Power Four program or a program that is devoid of quarterback talent. And that's not anything against Brendan. He's obviously the best athlete Iowa's had back there for a little while. He was the best quarterback in that room last season, bar none. Like he he was not Cade was not better than he was. Like I don't
No,
think at any point in the season. I
no.
don't know how that all was put together with Cade as the starter now knowing what we know about Sully. But that's kind of sucks for him is that it's either going to have to be a low tier Power Four program or a desperate Power Four program or maybe a good a decent G5. If he doesn't strike me as one that wants to be guaranteed the position, but he's also only got 1 year left. And that's the tough part here. And I think it would have been a really good competition between he and Gronowski. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, Jackson Stratton is the most seasoned quarterback in Iowa City at this point. That's been at Iowa the longest.
Yeah. Yeah. Stratton, who came to Iowa, what, like the end of last summer, I think? Something like
It was
that.
in the summer. Yeah.
Yeah, in the summer. Because he was not, neither he nor Sullivan were on the roster this time last year, when they were going through spring ball. I
Yeah.
mean, God, last year this time it was because Cade was still rehabbing, the torn ACL. I mean, it was the
This,
Deacon Hill show,
uh-huh.
and I don't remember who the other is. The walk-on probably. Tommy
Tommy Paholski,
probably.
Marco Linez was still in the
Marco. Yeah,
building. Yeah. Uh,
yeah,
yeah. Sully was the longest seasoned Iowa quarterback at the bowl practice. And
yeah. Because Sully got here. I wrote up, his entering the portal. He got here in May, so he ended up, he spent all of 11 months in Iowa City, as it turned out. Um, but yeah, so. It's yeah, portal, man. It's just crazy, crazy time.
so for the next few weeks, Hank Brown will be QB1. He will be QB1
Yep.
at spring ball as well. Other quarterbacks are going to be Jackson Stratton and Jimmy Sullivan. I'm assuming Stratton will be QB2 throughout this time frame just because Jimmy is still working his way and figuring things out. And then come the fall, Gronowski will be presumably available. He's supposed to be back in June, like able to fully participate in off-season workouts. And
I
then,
think he was saying June 1 is when he expected to be fully cleared, I
okay,
believe.
there you go.
So,
There you go. And then additionally, it will have Ryan Fitzgerald in the fold. He's going to be a walk-on and he's going to be a freshman, so not going to expect a ton from him. He'll probably be at playing at the scout team level to start his career in Iowa City, assuming he sticks all things out. But
yeah,
yeah,
going back to Hank Brown, that is the Kids Day open practice is in about 10 days. It's a week from this coming Saturday.
Kids Day is in August. Spring is
Whoops.
just going to be the open
Spring.
practice.
Sorry. Spring ball open practice. It's yeah, it's not Kids Day, but yeah, it's the open, the one open practice they give to the fans. So I think that is a week from Saturday, right? I
Yes,
think.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, that is, it'll be curious. I don't think there'll be a lot to take from it, just from the standpoint that we're not going to expect to see Hank Brown or Jackson Stratton get many snaps next fall, barring.
Let Hank Brown cook, Ross.
But yeah, you'll get to see him on the open practice and see what he can do. So that'll be, interesting.
This is a better situation than they were in
Oh,
last spring.
so much better.
Yeah.
So much better. I did a three thoughts on Sullivan leaving, entering the portal, and that was one of the thoughts was like, yes, this is a bummer. Yes, this hurts the depth. And still, the depth right now is so much better than it was a year. Like literally, like we said a year ago, it was Deacon Hill and, just like, oh, I don't know. And who else can throw the ball a little bit? Like, that Iowa has improved that situation enormously in the span of 12 months. And that's without Gronowski throwing a ball right now, and he's going to be QB1 next September.
Yes, he will. And that's that's an immediate upgrade, I think. I mean, you get a guy who started games in the SEC. Now, Hank Brown was young, he struggled, but it's an upgrade. It's not Deacon Hill anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
if we're being frank.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of the portal, which officially opens up today, like we said, um, let's talk about this other visitor, and then we'll talk about potential needs that Iowa has in the portal, and I'll write something up on that tonight more than likely. But Bryce George from Ferris State, D2 All-American, All-Conference. Ferris State's also the D2 national champions 3 out of the last 4 years. He was a starter at right tackle for them. 1 year of eligibility remaining, going to USC and Cal to visit as well. He is visiting Iowa City. We don't have specific dates for that. I don't think his agency wanted that out in the public, but he will be visiting Iowa. And that's, I think, I mean, he'd be a good get. I think Iowa is showing that they need help. I don't know at I don't know how that would work because Jennings Dunker was such a good right tackle for them last year. Like, do you flip him from right tackle to left tackle, or do you flip Bryce George from right tackle to left tackle, or how do you mix things up here? Are you putting, I don't know, Cade Peeper at I don't know. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is the first thing that jumped out to me too, is that, definitely a guy with some really strong credentials at the D2 level. But that right tackle, position is kind of a curious situation because that is, outside of Logan Jones at center, probably the most settled position on the Iowa offensive line. You like what Dunker did when he was healthy at right tackle last year. Like, I don't think you want to mess with that. But yeah, then do you feel comfortable flipping George? Has he played left tackle much at Ferris State? Could he handle that? Because left tackle is really where I think you're looking to make that upgrade in the portal this year. They have some good guys for the guard positions. They've got, we got Logan Jones at center. He's locked in. Hopefully he can stay healthy, have a really good senior year. They got Dunker at right tackle. Like I said, looked really good, really solid there last year. But that left tackle one, that's a little more questionable. Right now they're kind of battling it out between Trevor Lauk and Dotzler, right?
Yeah, Jack Dotzler.
Dotzler. Yep. So yeah, you can kind of see where, and neither one of those guys, very little in-game experience for both of those guys. So you can see where they might want someone with, some big game reps that could slide in.
I think they both played in like I when Iowa was up 42 to whatever against Northwestern, like those type of game reps.
Right. Yeah, they've got like blowout reps, but I don't think
Right.
they have any like, oh, this game is in doubt and you need to actually, play well type reps.
So with that move, even if they don't land him, there will be other guys in the portal as well. Um, that will probably have reps at left tackle at the D1 level. So
Right.
so
Right.
we'll see. But again, Ferris State is nothing to joke about. Their quarterback that won them the national title just transferred to Ole Miss. So and they won the
Well,
national
and
49 to
and
14 against Valdosta State, who's also a powerhouse. And
right. And I mean, yeah, and this guy is going to Cal and USC. Like he's going, other Power Four programs are interested in him and pursuing him. So it's not like, oh, why is Iowa looking at this D2 guy? Like, okay, well, a lot of other Power Four programs are also interested in his services. So like, yeah, this guy can play.
he can. It just will be interesting to see how they maneuver like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, could because like you said, Logan Jones, Jennings Dunker, Bo Stevens at left guard, pretty much settled. Cade Peeper has been a name that the staff's been really excited about at right guard, and then left guard or left tackle is what's more so up in the
Yeah.
air. But
Pieper was, that guy last year was like, boy, we wish we could get him some more reps, but there just, there wasn't kind of that opportunity because you had oh God, who were the guards last year was
Connor Colby,
Colby. Yeah, I mean Colby was playing well, and Bo Stevens was playing well. So it's like just there just weren't opportunities for Peeper. But yeah, he's the guy that's played well when he has had a chance. He's the guy the coaches have talked up for a little while now. So yeah, I think that's the guy you feel pretty good about, ready for that bigger starting role probably.
right, right. So he did play in those goal line packages a little bit too as like an extra tight end. So
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see him play.
jumbo package.
Right, play in some actual OL reps this season. Um, but the portal opens up officially, like I said today, as you're listening to this. I think the main things or main needs for Iowa, let's say three of them: corner, left tackle. Do you think they're going to add another quarterback?
Ah, uh, I kind of don't. I mean, I
Okay.
think if one kind of fell in their lap, maybe. They would take one. I don't know that they're going to actively pursue one though. I mean, it's hard to find the guy that you've got Gronowski as your one. So can you find a guy that like is okay being a two and like for that you're gonna need a guy that has more than 1 year of eligibility because I don't think anybody wants to come with 1 year and just hold a clipboard.
I think you got to go get another Hank Brown.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's kind of what you'd have to do, I think, if you get another quarterback, because you need somebody young, with a lot of eligibility left, but not a lot of experience, obviously. Like that's the trade-off there. Yeah, I don't know. That'll be interesting to see if they, because otherwise they go into this fall, they've got Gronowski, they've got Brown, they've got Stratton, they've got Sullivan, and Fitzgerald, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Not
I
Fitzpatrick.
mean, it's
Ryan has a few more years of eligibility left to come back down.
I
Um, you know,
mean,
I
that's five quarterbacks. That's
I just
yeah,
what my concern is there is we saw what happened last year, right? Cade's out,
yeah.
Sullivan's out, Marco's out,
Now
Jackson's
we're down. Now we're down to Stratton.
right. Because Reeser was out too, and Stratton probably
Right.
would have started over Reeser because Reeser was
Yep.
the wide receiver.
Right.
And we were talking about Kyle Girardi.
Oh my God. Yeah. He
Yeah,
was doing. He was running quarterback drills at the Maryland game.
right, exactly. Max White, who
Yeah.
is now also in the portal.
Yep.
That's just the situation. I mean, and we know that they can win games with Jackson Stratton at quarterback, but they also had Caleb Johnson in the backfield. They also still had Jay Higgins. They also still had Nick Jackson. They also still had Sebastian Castro. Like, right, like just go down the line. And so that would be, or maybe you go get another Jackson Stratton type that just didn't make it where they were at their last school, and you know Lester likes his film, and they have scholarships to work with, right?
Yeah.
And if you do want to go get a scholarship quarterback or a scholarship player at other positions now, especially, I mean, we didn't mention Joey Van Wetsinga who entered the portal. He's only been at Iowa for
Four
3 months,
months. Three
three, four,
months.
4 months. So that's
Yeah.
another scholarship that you can go out and use. I think they've got like seven to work with. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. That's for premium subscribers as well. You can see our scholarship chart.
Yep.
So they're going to have plenty to work with here. And
Yep.
and I
You
would say
mentioned.
quarterback is one, but left tackle and then corner. Corner is probably primary number one. You got to go add guys, especially after
Yeah.
losing John Nestor. I mean, we haven't seen TJ Holland, Deshaun Lee become what they need to become, right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, this kind of is their. You hope they have that jump this summer. This is kind of. I think they're both seniors this year, um, or maybe junior. One of them's a senior. Um, but yeah, this is one of their last chances, I think, to really step up and get that big time, role, prove themselves as that lead cornerback and, establish their credentials to, potential for the NFL draft. Like they are not there yet, but Iowa has a strong track record of turning D-backs into NFL prospects. But if that's going to happen, it's going to happen pretty soon for those guys because the clock is definitely running out. Um, you mentioned the Higgins and Jackson. Do you think linebacker is on that portal shopping list? Or I mean, they got a lot
I
of dudes there, just not a lot of experience.
Right. I don't think so. Everything we've heard about Carson Shire has been really good. Jaden Harrell, though he didn't look incredible at UCLA, I think when he got the majority of his snaps, I think it's a situation where he's waited his turn and Kirk really respects that. And I mean, I don't think they'll do it unless they really need to, or they feel
Yeah,
like they really need to. And they would presumably give Harrell an opportunity to enter the portal too. I mean,
right.
that just have to be a conversation that they would have. And again, this is all speculation, or this is not source,
Yep,
nothing.
yep, yep,
But I think they're happy with Shire. So I don't think, and I think regarding like the Leo, heard good things about Jaden Montgomery, heard good things about Landon Van Keekricks. I don't necessarily think Jackson Rexroth is going to hold down that position. That it was a tough bowl game for him, especially in coverage. So, uh,
yeah.
I would imagine somebody on scholarship will fill that spot, whether it's one of those two guys or maybe like Derek Weiskopf or Cam Buffington. So we'll see how that transpires. But yeah, I would say corner is priority number one. And I did look up TJ Hall as a senior, Deshaun Lee as a junior. So
That's right. I thought they
yes.
were, yeah, I thought it was kind of one junior and one senior. So
I think they
we
were in
got
the
that.
same class, but TJ Hall played as a freshman. That's when he got
Yeah.
the Nebraska game happened. So
Yeah.
yeah, which we don't have to revisit.
Nope.
But yeah, that'll all transpire tomorrow, all opens up tomorrow. So like I said, Ross and I not going to have a life, but you will be able to follow along with us at iowa.rivals.com/subscribe. So join us there if you're not a premium subscriber yet. We're going to have all that coverage on our premium board and articles and more. So do that today. And before we wrap up, make sure that you drop a like, drop a comment on YouTube. What do you think should be Iowa's priorities in the portal? Whether it's basketball, whether it's football, whether it's women's basketball or men's basketball, I should say. Where should they go? Who should they add via the portal? And what's next for them there? Drop a like as well. Become a subscriber here on YouTube as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Leave that rate and review because it helps us out a lot and we really appreciate it. So do that today. For now, I am Eliot Clough at Eliot Clough on Twitter, joined by Ross Binder, and we will see you next time.